Welcome back to Variant Quran. I'm Dr. Daniel Brubaker. Some of you have wondered whether Yasir Qadhi sent me a reply to the email that I showed you about a week ago, and indeed he did. So stick around until the end. We're going to talk about that a little bit, and then I'll show you his reply to me and then my subsequent reply to him. All right, well, let's just jump right in. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time dealing with criticisms and things like that because really I don't think they need to have a whole lot of time spent on them. But every now and then you do need to answer some of these things, and some of this stuff has been swirling around and repeated, and the criticisms that Yasir Qadhi made of me are recycled to a large extent and have been circulated around by some other people as well. So my response is a little bit more general in nature. I want to answer these things a little bit and then move on to other stuff because really I have other work to do and don't need to be distracted by these things. All right, let's go into the substance. Now, when he made his video the day before Thanksgiving last week, what was that? That was the week before last. Well, he criticized me. He put me in with two other gentlemen, David Wood and Jay Smith. I think trying to throw me into a category with some folks who are doing, which I don't disrespect what they're doing in the least, but to throw me into a category of apologists and polemicists. And I think that was, I can imagine it looks to be intentional to me to try and characterize me in a particular way. And that fits also with some of the other things and the way that he has leveled to criticisms, which are largely ad hominem criticisms of me. So I just want you to notice that aspect of it. But okay, so let's jump into the main things that he says. And I'm doing this from memory, but he criticizes pulling from a parody Twitter account that is, by the way, in an unauthorized way, reproducing and reprinting my excerpts from my doctoral dissertation. But be that as it may, it's out there, and they're doing it. That's another matter. But somebody went and obviously combed through my entire doctoral dissertation and picked out the places where they found some mistakes in it. It wouldn't be surprising that there would be mistakes. There are mistakes in every doctoral dissertation. And probably, maybe there are one or two that don't have any mistakes, but that is what it is. So I've been aware of a number of these things for a while. Well, I've been aware of one of them for a while. The other one is something that is a little bit odd, but I do want to point out what Yasir Qadhi was criticizing. He was criticizing, in one instance, and others have been criticizing, saying that I don't know Arabic or some variation of not knowing Arabic or not being good in Arabic or whatever. There are a couple things I want to say to that. One of them being I could not have gotten to where I am, number one, successfully defending my doctorate to the satisfaction of my examiners. Number two, even completing the work that I did without knowing Arabic to the sufficient level and of the type of Arabic that I needed to know in order to do this work. And so it's absurd, actually, really, to be saying that I don't know Arabic. I think you all have seen this this YouTube channel, and you've seen that I have the ability to move around in Arabic. I don't even know why I'm talking about it because it's, it should be patently obvious. Now, you can criticize pronunciation, you can criticize grammar, and, I accept any valid criticism. And some of those criticisms you didn't properly parse this, or you didn't make the most preferable word choice in translation, or maybe you got a translation wrong. Those are things that, I'm not going to argue if they're true and valid. But the larger point behind that is this, that in some ways, it is really a distraction it's a smokescreen from the main point. Behind my work is really what my work has been is to review thousands of pages thousands, tens of thousands actually, well, probably about 10,000 pages, more than 10,000 pages now of early Quran manuscripts, and locate and describe corrections, physical corrections that exist in them. And so if you come down and you look at the substance of the work and the fact of a correction, you can do a couple of different things. You can say that wasn't really a correction. You can say that was a mistake, which some people have tried to say, and some of them I've freely admitted are likely mistakes. I don't believe they're all mistakes, but some people have tried to suggest that everything is a mistake, and that is the full explanation for all of these. I don't think that's the case, but of course people can argue whatever they wish on that, and they should do so from considering the evidence, I think, and looking at each thing on a case-by-case basis. But you have this situation of a correction in an early Quran manuscript. Number one, either it is or is not accurately described. There is either a correction there or not. That's number one. Did I see what was on the page? Is it, in fact, something that was done after the initial production of the page? Number two, did I correctly identify the verse that it exists in? Number three, did I correctly identify the rasm, the portion of the rasm that was affected, and so forth? And so far, I don't think I've seen anybody who has found an error in my identification of a portion of rasm that has been corrected. Number one, identifying which verse it is. Number two, identifying what portion of rasm. And number three, that there is in fact a correction, or in some cases a variant in a manuscript. And so this is really what I do. So I just want you to know that all the other stuff about, oh, you didn't choose the right word, or that's a ridiculous translation, or whatever, that's important. All these things are important. Details are very important, but I just want you to recognize that that is sort of a sideshow to the main thing, which is the existence of these things, and trying to get our heads around what the meaning of these things in the manuscripts are. And I don't blame, I do understand apologists and polemicists on all sides who are trying to win points and so forth. And I understand that Yasir Qadhi is trying to win points and trying to create an impression of somebody like myself who's doing research and sort of knock me off as an authority, as somebody to be listened to, because the substance of what I'm doing is potentially disrupting of people's worldview and the things that they believe and hold dear and so forth. I don't, I'm sympathetic to that. I understand it. I just want to point out that it is an attack on the person. And usually an ad hominem attack comes when there's no, when somebody realizes that there's no substantive way of winning the argument. And I'm not really arguing with anyone, but you don't come and, for example, if somebody wanted to say or to debunk, some people have thrown around the word debunk. If you wanted to debunk my work, you would come and say, no, Brubaker is wrong. There's not really a correction in that manuscript. He's incorrect in noting that there's something there. Or you would say, no, this is clearly a mistake. Now, some people have tried to do that, and that's fine. And you can say in each individual case, this is clearly just a scribal mistake, and there's nothing to see here. And, you can try to do that. But to come and do these things of saying you shouldn't listen to Brubaker because he doesn't know what he's talking about, because he doesn't know Arabic, that is, I think that's just smoke and mirrors. So you can make of that what you want, but that is my response to that. Now, let's see, what else did he say? It was the Arabic issue. Yeah, it was the translation, and well, I think that might be the substance of what he dealt with. And by the way, an interesting thing, I was just presented my paper, not my best paper actually. Frankly, I didn't feel that too good about my presentation, but last year's was very good at the International Quranic Studies Association. This year we were all on Zoom because of the virus situation. And so anyway, my panel, the interesting thing about that you may not have realized or known is that I'm told Yasir Qadhi was originally on my panel, and was meant to be giving a paper alongside me. And for some reason, he did not wind up being on that panel, and I don't know what happened. Although I do recognize that the events of this summer intervened probably between the time that we all presented our paper proposals and obviously the time of presenting. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. I do, feel sympathetic to him. And yes, sir, if you're listening to this, I don't, I think you were honest, even if your words were misinterpreted by some. I think that the statement that you made in that interview was honest, and I saw you wanting to be as tactful and protective of people as possible while also being honest, and I respected that when I saw it. And I didn't take any joy in seeing the fury from all sides coming down on you for that. But at any rate, Yasir Qadhi was meant to be on the panel that I was presenting on, and I was alongside Marian Van Putten, Haitham Sidki, and the discussants for the panel were Alba Fideli and Shadi Nasser. So that was a very good group of people. Our very own Asma Hilali, Dr. Asma Hilali, was current president of the International Quranic Studies Association, and she gave the presidential address, which I missed, but I did correspond with her afterwards, and she kindly sent me a copy of her prepared paper for that, so I was able to read it and look at that. So these things are going on in the background in the academic world, and I'm immersed in it, and I'll be giving you little snippets and views into that world from time to time. Yeah, so let's go in now. I just want to wrap this up with letting you see the follow-up correspondence that I had with Yasir Qadhi. I think it's okay to share this because it is a issue of public interest, and again, Yasir, if you ever want me to, I will respect. If you ever want to have a private communication with me, just note it in your email. I'll respect that. But so here is the email that Yasir sent back to me. He says, Dan, as I said in the video, I have nothing against you as a person. Apologies for saying David accidentally, as I was just talking about David Wood, and that slipped out. I am in general a very amicable person, I would like to think. I am also very frank and don't believe in double talk. Not only am I not impressed with what I've read from you, for me, the main point that I find problematic is that you seem to be agenda driven. Okay, I want to talk about these things as we go through them. Rather than just reading the whole email and coming back at them. But it's very good to not believe in double talk and want to be straightforward in what we say. That's a good thing. We don't want to be two-faced in our presentation to the world. Tactful is one thing, but two-faced is something that's not generally so good. He says he's not impressed with what he's read from me, and that's fine. He can be impressed or not be impressed, that's fine. The main point that I find problematic is that you seem to be agenda driven. Well, and he continues on to say, I understand my biases as a Muslim and hence always try my best when I give academic talks to put myself in as neutral of a position as possible. And that's great. I mean, that's what we all try to do. The fact of the matter is that everyone in doing scholarly work or otherwise has biases. We all have biases. It's very good that Yasir Qadhi recognizes his biases as a Muslim when he's doing academic work. We have to do those in religious studies. In my area of religious studies, you bracket your beliefs. You recognize that they're there. You don't let go of them or say that you don't believe them, but you sort of, as a methodology, you set them aside while you consider the question in front of you and you look at it and think about it. And it's good that he does that. And by the way, it's what I do as well. And I recognize that as a Christian, I have things that I believe in. I recognize that I have premises that are foundational for me, that I operate and see the world through. But I also, as a trained scientist and, well, as an honest person, my undergraduate degree, one of them is cell and molecular biology. And so I understand scientific method. And I'm going to do a video coming up on what is science coming up soon. But you want to recognize what things can be empirically proven, meaning they can rest on observations of the world, and those things are part of physical reality. Usually physical reality can be measured. Now, the thing about reality is that there are some aspects of reality. I think it would be absurd to believe that there are not aspects of reality that we cannot measure and cannot perceive. In the same way that certain animals don't have the ability to, for example, to see color. It doesn't mean that color doesn't exist. Well, actually, color doesn't exist. It's wavelengths that we perceive as color. But the point is that our perceptions and our senses are limited. And beyond that, the idea that there is a reality beyond what is physical is, I think, a very reasonable proposition. Now, determining what that reality, the problem is that reality is beyond the reach of science. And so these premises are things that we have to either arrive at by the use of reason, and reason can be powerful in this regard, or we arrive at them by pure faith. And so, and sometimes a combination of both. But those are things that are outside. And so we have to recognize we can use these in our view of the world, but we also have this empirical data over here. So most of the time when we're doing scientific work, we're working with empirical data, whether it's, history is a little bit difficult because none of us are going to be eyewitnesses to events 1,000 years ago, much less, even in the same way, we're not even going to be witnesses to events that are more than a mile away from us at any given time. We have to rely on eyewitness accounts of what happens in the world and what has happened in the past in the world. So there's all this. But then when we come back to the manuscripts and to other objects such as coins and inscriptions and things like that, we have witnesses. We have tangible evidence of something that happened in the past. So that is also what we're doing. All right. So Yasir Qadhi understands his biases as a Muslim. I understand my biases as a Christian. I have never hidden the fact that I'm a Christian. I try to operate in an honest way and to participate in discussions freely and openly, but not to try and press some particular agenda. This word agenda is curious to me because I don't know in what way he means agenda-driven, unless he perhaps means by the very fact that I've chosen the topic that I did. And I don't know whether it bears mention, but obviously I chose a topic that was, number one, interesting to me. Number two, that I thought was important. The question of whether the Quran that has reached us is, in fact, the Quran that existed at the time of Muhammad, and that he, according to tradition, delivered to his people. It's a really important question. It's a very important question. And it may be that what we have now is a faithful representation of that. But as academics and as scientists, we can't assume that from the start. No matter what I may be inclined to believe that or not believe that. As a Christian, I may be inclined to believe that. Many Christians are inclined to believe the traditional account about the transmission of the Quran, and many Christians are inclined not to. And but most Muslims, of course, are inclined to believe it. And that's fine. You can believe whatever you want, but when we're operating, we need to put those things over on this side, and we need to operate in the realm of the pursuit of truth. And truth, what is truth? Truth is what is. It's what exists in the world as it is, and that's what we're after. So that's kind of a long and roundabout way of saying it, but let's continue with Yasir Qadhi's reply to me. He says, I understand when I make a theological assumption and when I don't. Okay, great. I also understand when I make a theological assumption and when I don't. I don't think I make too many theological assumptions in applying to my academic work. He says, in your case, I find it very repugnant that you are spoon-feeding well-known Islamophobes and Christian apologists who lack both genuine knowledge and integrity. Now, this is really an important aspect of this letter because, spoon-feeding, I'm not sure what that means, except maybe that my material is being made available, but it's already published in a book, and it's out in other places and so forth. It's out there to be discussed. So I don't know what spoon-feeding means, except perhaps that I'm having conversations and making myself available selectively to interviews and things like that. And I haven't said yes to that many interviews with folks. But this word Islamophobe, I just want to mention that for a moment, and to point out what that word is. And I've given a talk about this that I would like to actually redo at the Westminster Institute, because I don't feel that I said it quite as well as I could have, and so I'd like to redo that talk one day. But I want you to notice that the word Islamophobe is not a scholarly word. It's not a word that I actually don't respect, or I lose respect for academics and scholars when they use this word, because it's a term of propaganda, it's a term of rhetoric, really, that is used to discredit someone or to tar them. It is another word that is in fact an ad hominem word. It's used to apply to people that you don't want other people to listen to. This word today is typically applied to people who, anybody can have this word applied to them, whether somebody is critical of Islam or nobody wants to be around people who are unkind to other human beings just because of what they believe or where they come from or what they look like or anything like that. So I never endorse that sort of thing. But notice that Islam is it's not an ethnicity, it's not a nation of origin or anything like that. It is a system of beliefs. And so to place any criticism of a belief system off limits and to say that not speaking well of it or indeed, speaking ill of it is somehow bad or reprehensible or repugnant, as the word that Yasir Qadhi uses here, is really actually, it's being protective of something and it's placing limits on it. So you can criticize anything else, but you can't criticize this. And so beyond being a term of rhetoric, I think it's also a term of cowardice. Look, if somebody wants to criticize me or anything that I believe, come and, let's have the conversation. So that should be the case for anyone. And being an American, independent-minded, spirited American, as I am, I'm also very aware of the importance of freedom of conscience. And freedom of conscience is expressed in freedom of speech. And if you don't have freedom of speech, you do not have freedom of conscience. And freedom of religion goes along with that. And so these things are very, very important. And so I guard them zealously. Not for myself so much. I think I'm okay, but I think that everybody needs to have an environment in which you can be free to think, and you can't be free to think if you're not free to speak. Words are the vehicles through which we express meaning, and so this is just very important. So anyway, that's another long roundabout way of saying I reject the term Islamophobe and Islamophobia. Now, Christian apologists, he says lack both genuine knowledge and integrity, and I assume he has some legitimate criticism of knowledge, and he probably does have more advanced knowledge in certain aspects of what Jay or David, because Yasir Qadhi has an area of specialization. And he's a native, as I understand it, he's a native speaker of Arabic, appears to be very fluent in the sources and so forth. And so it would not be at all surprising if he had a deeper level of knowledge on some of these things than my advisor David Cook, David Wood, or Jay Smith, or myself, indeed. And I don't think anyone would be surprised at that, because we all have our particular areas of specialization. And so lacking genuine knowledge means you don't have any genuine knowledge, which I would be surprised if that was the case with either of those guys or myself. By the way, I do know that both of them have their doctorates as well in different areas. And you don't get to a point of that, no matter how you present yourself to the world. You don't get to a point of having a doctorate without having some knowledge and having some ability to work with ideas and read a whole bunch and defend your ideas to a committee. So that has happened with those guys. And I'm not here to defend them. I'm just telling you what I happen to know about them. And I understand you can't control who reads your works, but in your case, there is direct cooperation, as we all know, and your own personal beliefs and story as well are known. Well, of course, I've been very open in the world. I'm fairly public in my presentation to the world, and I think I'm pretty much an open book. So that's what it is. I think that's a good way to live. It's a lot less stressful way to live. Well, I guess it relates to personality as well, whether you're a private person or a public and open person. I always thought I was kind of an introvert as a kid, but I think more as I get older, I seem to be a much more open person, although I do like to spend a lot of time alone with a book. So maybe that's true of some of you as well. Okay, so I am spoon-feeding, I suppose, and he says then further down that there's direct cooperation, and as I said, I haven't given an interview to David Wood yet, and he hasn't asked me, although I think it would be possible if we ever wanted to do something like that. But by the way, a number of these people I've spent time with them, and a number of other people have spent time with. As you know, Asma Hilali is a friend. Asma has not been to our home yet. Imran al-Badawi, the current executive director of ICSA, has been in our home. Indeed, Haitham Sidki has been a guest in our home. Thomas Milo, many of these other people, Garrett Quinn, as you know. I am involved in this world, and I'm friends with almost everybody who's involved in this world, in this circle of study. And so it should not be surprising that I would be in conversation and associated with many people. Now, there are a lot of people who will sort of cordon themselves off and place themselves off limits from conversations and discussions with those with whom they disagree or who are ideologically different from them. I'm not that sort of person. I will have conversations. I may not have a conversation on camera with people that the main thing is I want to know that people are honest and they're not going to do a sort of gotcha moments with you and try to make you look foolish on camera. But aside from that, I will have conversations with pretty much anyone. I am open to the world, and I'm here living this life, and it's, I think, really important to be in discussion with people of all different kinds of opinions, points of view, backgrounds, and so forth, and so I do value that. It's one reason I'm so grateful to have been able to travel to all the places that I have around the world. I don't know, more than 40 countries now, but including in my research, to places like Kuwait and Egypt and Bahrain several times, Jordan, Lebanon, Uzbekistan, Russia, and Turkey, and many other places. And so this is all very good. This is good. This is the world that we live in. So let's continue on here. And my personal beliefs and story are well known. Yeah, okay. Anyone who conflates personal theological agendas with genuine scholarship eventually fails in both arenas. I'm not really sure that that's true, but I'm not sure that that's what I don't know what Yasir Qadhi actually means. He appears to be applying that to me, theological agendas with genuine scholarship, aside from the conflict of interest, the idea that you do have a bias. You have to recognize your biases and sort of try to work around them and make sure that you're not allowing them to influence your conclusions. But you're going to be cross-examined by people. When you make a conclusion in a paper or in a book, peer review is going to bring that out. People are going to challenge you, and either it'll stand up or it won't stand up, or it'll be an inconclusive outcome. But having a theological let's see how we say this, bringing theology, and it's not what I'm doing, by the way, but I just want to, for the sake of the what Yasir Qadhi is mentioning here, number one, I just want to point out that I think this probably this allegation or accusation could be turned back toward him to a certain extent. But I don't think it's a bad thing to bring theology into a conversation and think about theology in as much of a reasoned and scientific way as possible. And so agendas, yeah, okay, so if you come with I think the word agenda, what you get at with that word is the idea that you have a pre-commitment, and that is not a good thing. It's not. When you come to try to make conclusions and to do thinking about ultimate concerns, which is what we're talking about here when we talk about theology, you want to come with. I don't really like the word open mind, because open mind means not coming to conclusions. But if you have an open mind at the beginning of an investigation, it's actually a good thing, because you want to consider all the data and you want to consider it in as reasonable a way as possible. Now, to come to the end of an investigation and to still have an open mind when you've already sort of the evidence has pointed toward ruling out certain conclusions would be, I would say, an irresponsible thing. So all of us have been kind of down a road. I assume Yasir Qadhi has been down a road. I've been down a road of investigation and thinking about these things over the course of my life. And so it's reasonable to have some at least tentative conclusions that we've come to. So, yeah, but I depending on what he means by agendas, I would either agree with that statement or I would push back on it slightly. All right, and the last thing he says is, as I said, I have nothing personal against you, and if we ever meet, you will not find me impolite or rude, but I can't respect a person who uses the academy to pursue an agenda of conversion or proselytization. All right, well, I mean, these are, again, sort of heavy allegations. I mean, if you put the word purpose in there, and, you know, the purpose of the pursuit of truth and the dealing with the things that are important in life, I don't think that's at odds with the work of the Academy, but I don't at all think that's the case. But then again, I don't see my work as being an agenda of conversion and proselytization, although it's something that I do care about as a Christian. That is part and parcel of being a Christian. You have to be about that, and every Christian is supposed to be about that business. It is an honest thing. And I don't think any of us want to be dishonest in our lives. And so I'm open to being persuaded of positions that are different from my own. And I think that's a way that everybody should be, because none of us wants to, I hope, none of us wants to spend our lives believing something that's not true. Yeah, so that probably brings that to a conclusion, his response to me, and that's a very, very detailed and long reply to his response. But here's what I wrote back to him. I wrote, Dear Yasir, your characterization of my work and of the worthiness of my research focus is interesting to me. I cannot, of course, require you to hold it or me in high regard, nor, I wrote not, but it should be nor is such my particular concern. There is more to be said, and it might warrant further conversation at some point. If I have spare moments in coming days, I may send you additional reflections. At the moment, I won't, but to acknowledge your reply. All right, so I think that should make sense. And I'll just wrap up this rather long video at this point, and thank you for watching. I'm going to try to get back to some more substantive stuff. Just so you know, as an update, I'm working hard right now to finish my book that I've been promising you for so long, and so I'm going to try. These videos are sort of this ongoing weight on my shoulders that I have to do week after week, and I want to keep up with you. But I just want you to know that I'm working on some other important things at the moment as well that you will really enjoy and appreciate once they come to light. So thank you very much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe and leave comments below, and we will respond to some of those as time goes on, as well as we add new material for your information. All right. Well, thanks so much. Talk to you soon. Bye.